Hello everyone, this is the finale of What If Naruto Awakened New Skills, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. At dawn 2 days after Uburi, Naruto and Minato had their conversation in the Hokage's office. Iwa launched the primary assault on the walls of Konoha, firing rocks and other earth jutsu in an attempt to break down the defenses. Sasuke, Naruto and Kakashi stood atop the wall at different sections firing off various counter-attacks. Uburi waited behind the lines aiding the evacuation of the civilians until the time was right, while Minato and 3 squads of Anbu launched an attack from behind the enemy's lines. They would attack one area before regrouping and disappearing to another area. They only took out around 12 to 15 troops at each location, but it was enough to start causing problems in the chain of command. After their initial attack, Minato and the Anbu retreated and Naruto and Sasuke grouped together and started launching wave after wave of Amaterasu on their hapless enemies. Next, a wave of Chunin and Jonin moved forwards on each side of the wall and launched various fire attacks. After that attack, the Iwa forces pulled back to regroup, at which point Naruto and Minato moved off the wall and launched a full-scale assault on the enemy forces flying in and out of the enemy ranks. As up their opponents with a combination of Razingans, kunais and shuriken waves. Then as suddenly as their assault had begun, they moved back behind the wall, the Iwa forces making a swift retreat to their field base to regroup, rearm and re-strategize. The Iwa forces had also been less than pleased to find that each village and town they fought to gain a hold over had been left deserted, with the shinobi's retreat and all the injured were taken. After almost an hour of waiting, Iwa launched a second attack against the walls, which was dealt with even quicker than the first by a swarm of Naruto clones using Amaterasu. A similar process continued throughout the day, with waves of Iwa forces rushing forwards and attacking the walls only to be prevented by various attacks by Leaf Shinobi. As dusk began to settle, Iwa retreated once more as Minato and Naruto stood above the gates watching their retreat. What do you think? Was that a main force, or were they just testing the water? Asked Naruto. Just barely testing the water. That was mostly Genin with a few Chunin chucked in for some of the more chakra-consuming attacks. I'd expect a number of attacks overnight as well, replied Minato. Fine, I'll henge some clones and in an hour or so they'll switch with the current watch so that we have a coordinated defense of all the members can see 360 degrees in total darkness, said Naruto. Minato nodded. Roger that, I'll pass the message around, you go ahead and create the clones and get some sleep. You'll likely need it if something happens, said Minato. Naruto nodded before taking off to create the clones and get some sleep. In Suna it had been a similar story, with many of the grass forces being either crushed by Gaara's sand, burned by Utsura's Amaterasu, or blown back by the multitude of wind attacks launched by the Suna forces. The biggest problems lay in Kumo, where the dense cloud cover left the mist and cloud shinobi on more or less even footing, the waterfall shinobi either being easily dealt with by cloud shinobi or just dealt with for being in the way by mist shinobi. Yugito and Taihei were beyond dangerous, with Taihei providing accurate locations of enemy shinobi through the cloud cover and then Yugito blasting them with lightning attacks, laying waste to many unsuspecting shinobi struggling to use their Kirigakure training, with all the noise and disturbance being created around them. Every so often a number of mist and out-off or waterfall shinobi would band together to try and overwhelm them, at which point Taihei would unleash an Amaterasu and leave them all as little more than ashes before moving positions, since the blast would give it away. That night in Konoha, Iwis Anbu made several attempts to sneak over the wall, and each time they would either be seen by one of the clones and K, or would K a clone alerting the rest to their presence. In Suna, the cold temperature of the desert night left the grass ninja unable to fight and huddling together for warmth, whilst Suna Anbu would raid the camps every couple of hours and take out several of the guards and other high-ranking ninja before slipping back into the night. In Kumo neither side made a move, the dense clouds only becoming denser in the cold air and preventing even the most skilled of ninja making any headway to make an attempt at their enemy. Things progressed this way for nearly a month, with Konoha suffering almost no casualties at all. Suna suffered minimal casualties and Kumo suffered a reasonable amount, but left mist and waterfall nearly crippled. Grass were barely better and called a retreat, and Iwa launched a final attack hoping to overwhelm Konoha with sheer numbers. Dawn broke 2 days past the month that marked Uberi's first month in Konoha. The sentry clones launched their attacks as soon as the approaching Iwa forces came in range, and instantly all the Konoha shinobi were scrambling to the walls. Wave after wave of Iwa ninja came at them again and again before being pushed back slightly. Instantly Naruto, Minato, Sasuke, Wahei and Uburi were in the gaps between the Iwa ninja and the walls that surrounded Konoha. The Iwa ninja charged each of them, trying to overwhelm them with sheer numbers. The first to fall back was Sasuke. Lacking the chakra reserves of Minato, Naruto and Uburi and the experience of Wahei, he found himself overrun and moved back while the ninja on the wall covered him. The next to retreat was Wahei, followed shortly by Uburi, her chakra reserves making up for the lack of experience. The next back was Minato, and with his allies clear, Naruto unleashed the hell he was truly capable of. The full power and some of the most devastating techniques that Akahito had ever come across in his millennia in existence came to the forefront, and wave after wave of Iwa ninja were crushed, burned, drowned, shocked and blown away, in more ways than one. Again and again he unleashed area-wide concentrated chakra blasts. He lived up to his name of the Maelstrom and up and blew away shinobi and kunoiki alike with hurricane force winds. He used pure chakra to generate earthquakes and split the ground beneath the opposing forces before sealing it back up and crushing those within. Like the QB once sealed within him, he became a living natural disaster, but unlike his former tenant, he lacked the B-induced rage and instead caused organized chaos. By the time the sun reached its highest point, the number of Iwa ninja left was drastically reduced. They'd come in wave after wave and had been skillfully herded into the range of Naruto's attacks and generally annihilated. Swiftly the forces began their retreat, barely an eighth of the initial forces heading for the border. Swiftly the Konoha ninja gave chase, and by the time the Iwa forces actually reached the border, they were down to a mere tenth of their original forces. Unfortunately, among the list of S on Konoha's side were Akamaru, who was saving Kiba from a boulder, Kiba's older sister Hana and her dogs, who were buried alive by an earth jutsu trying to save people who'd been knocked off the wall, and finally Might Guy, who S when he tried to destroy a boulder thrown over the wall which had been laced with exploding notes. His injuries were severe, and by the time he was taken to the hospital he'd lost too much beef or even sooner to heal him. By the end of the week, the Earth Daimyo had come to Fire Country, initially for talks with the Fire Daimyo, and after the understanding was made that Iwa had acted without the Daimyo's knowledge or approval, he had moved on to Konoha, where he had issued 15S rank mission requesting the ear of the Tsuchikage and the Council of Iwa. By the time the Earth Daimyo returned with a small contingent of Konoha forces, the Kajin Council had been eliminated, and in less than a week the entire of the village hidden in the stone had been disbanded and its forces spread amongst the smaller villages of Earth Country. A week later Naruto was named the 5th Hokage of Konoha, setting the record as the youngest and strongest Hokage to ever be produced by Konoha, and Minato left with Kakashi and Obito to search for Rin. Naruto's first act was to completely disband the council and reform 3 separate councils made up of people he chose. He simply asked people to apply without any criteria given and selected those he thought best for the jobs. The first council to be reformed was the Shinobi Council, consisting of the major clan heads and 4 high-level jonin. The next was the civilian, which was set up to deal solely with civilian matters and would have no control at all over the shinobi. The final council was the Education Council, which would look over the education systems after each year and implement changes to optimize the running for each one, the first being the pre-ninja, the second being those selected for training as ninja, and the third being the civilian. The next thing he did was to outlaw arranged marriages. He agreed that children could be brought together at an early age to increase the likelihood that they would end up in a relationship, but they would not be forced into a marriage so that a family could gain political power. He also tightened the laws on what ninja clans could and could not permit their members to learn. This was to prevent the glaring weakness created by the Hyuga's dependence on the gentle fist style. 3 months after the Third Great Shinobi War and the shortest war in the history of the elemental countries ended, and just before the start of the Chunin exams to be held in Suna, Hinata gave birth to her and Naruto's first child, a little girl with bright blue eyes and wisps of light blue hair, which they named Tenpi. Naruto and Sasuke's genin teams both achieved the rank of Chunin at the exams. Neji, having had the fate stick surgically removed from his, finally realized that Tenten liked him and started dating her. By the end of the year, Sakura, Temari and Utsuri had all given birth, and Uburi seemed to have become quite taken with Lee. Naruto and Hinata got married first, followed shortly by Gaara and Utsuri and Sasuke and Temari in a double wedding. Then Sakura married Choji, and Shikamaru finally got his act together and asked Ino to marry him. 3 years later Gaara and Utsuri moved to Suna with Kankuro, and Gaara took the position of Kazekage. 6 months after that Yugito and Taihei moved to Kumo, with Yugito taking up the position of Reikage. Naruto and Hinata had a further child, as had Gaara and Utsuri, and Choji and Sakura. Yugito and Taihei had their first as Diddley and Uburi. Naruto's Genin team all attained the rank of Jonin, with Sasuke joining them 6 months later. 2 years after that Hanabi married Niji Makawari and Mai Minazuka in a 3-way wedding. After 30 years as the Hokage, at the age of 45, Naruto stepped down and handed over the reins to Konohamaru, who took the office for 10 years before passing it on to a new, younger Hokage. The alliances between Konoha, Suna and Kumo only got stronger as time went on, and as each new generation became friends with the children of their parents' friends and frequently marrying. In less than 5 generations the only villages remaining were Konoha, Suna and Kumo. Each enjoyed a state of peace, and any time a tyrant came to power in one of the villages he was swiftly dealt with to maintain the peace. Rain stayed in the background after Pain's defeat. They didn't have the power to challenge any others but could still handle enough missions to keep going. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.